Welcome, everybody, to the Healing Place podcast. I'm your host, Teri Wellbrock. Super excited to have with me today Inna Segal, and she is global healing expert and an award-winning author, which I'm so excited. Like her book, 1 million copies sold in 27 languages. Like that, as a writer myself, I applaud that. It's just an amazing. I love the idea of so many people connecting with her work. So for those of you watching YouTube, just FYI, Max is on my lap. You've seen him on occasion. So Max is saying hi to everybody. And I'm going to try to get him to sleep in my arms while we do this conversation. So with all that said, welcome, Ina.
Thank you, Terry. So good to be on your show.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Well, again, I feel so blessed. I say sometimes, I used to say I felt selfish for doing this show because I learned so much personally, but I don't look at it that way. I look at it as such a gift and a blessing to be able to have this platform and learn from beautiful souls such as yourself who do this amazing work. So I guess where we'll start is your personal story and what led you to this place of one putting this book out into the universe, which your book is The Secret Language of Your Body. And if do you talk about your personal story?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I guess that's how we all started. And for me, it was just going round and round in circles with the attitude of, like most people have, I know nothing about my body, and the experts, whoever they are, will know everything and will fix it for me. And that's actually not what happened. So after going from one expert to another, from medical to alternative, I got to a point where I went to see this chiropractor. I was in agony. My back was inflamed. I could hardly walk. I had digestive issues. I had psoriasis all over my skin. I had anxiety. And he'd known me for a little while, and he knew that I had gone through a lot of different issues from coming to, I live in Australia, so coming to Australia from Eastern Europe and not being able to speak the language and being bullied for it, to I had a loss of a child when I was just turned 20. And so I was really struggling with life and just everything that was coming at me and happening. And I wasn't letting go because I didn't even know what it meant. And people that I was seeing, whatever they were doing, I didn't feel involved in it. And so for the first time in my life, he basically, when I saw him, he said, "Your body's stuck in a, and there's nothing I can do about it. You need to go home and look at yourself." And so I was pretty angry when he said that, I have to say. Um, but as I was going home, it just started occurring to me that there was a language that my body was speaking. And at that point, it felt like it was Japanese because like symbols, like nothing that I could understand. And over the next several weeks, I had these experiences of really connecting to my body. And I had, at one point, I asked, I wonder what my body would look like. Like, I wonder what my back would look like, expecting nothing. And all of a sudden, I felt like this light switch went on, and I could literally see my back. I could see exactly what it looked like. And I also kind of went, well, if there's anything divine out there, help me now, because obviously I need extra help, and I don't even know if there is. And I just felt all this warmth move through my body. And then I started seeing, I guess, memories slash archetypal symbolic images of my life and different things that occurred in my life, from being bullied to, for different things, at the beginning coming to a school where I couldn't speak a word of English, to being bullied in a private school for not being rich and wealthy, and my parents just having their own challenges and conflicts, and then my grandparents going through horrendous traumas and losses in their own lives and never really communicating and talking about it, and me just being this sponge that absorbed everything. And so over the next several weeks, I just kept connecting and asking questions and exploring and feeling through the different emotions. And by the end of these few weeks, my psoriasis disappeared, which was, a really profound physical
Well, I
thing.
just have to interject that I am covered head to toe right now in the worst outbreak ever of psoriasis. So,
Uh,
like, I'm just hanging on your every word because I want to understand. Right now, I'm in acupuncture and it's helping, but it, I
mm.
know that it's an emotional component. I know it's has to do with my any little unresolved trauma that I just haven't been able to get to. So, yeah, continue. I'm sorry. I just had to throw that
Yeah.
in there.
No, 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 it's great. I mean, not great that you have it because it's not very pleasant. But like for me, it was very ancestral meets a lot of anger, a lot of anger of what happened to me in my life, that it was just very unprocessed and rejection. And because it's, obviously it's all over your, especially when you have it all over your skin, it's like, connected to the liver, connected to the fact that the body's trying to cleanse and detox, but it can't in some way. And the fact is, like, feeling unprotected. And so
Yeah.
I really felt very unprotected, when I came to Australia and couldn't speak the language, and I just didn't know how to be myself, because the skin is also a representation of, are we comfortable in our own skin, so to speak, that metaphor, or what's happening in our lives that's causing us to be uncomfortable. And so I was exploring that a lot, because I was kind of looking at what is the logic, what is this language, and how's it logical? And so for me, the greatest pain was my back. And I started realizing that I had just pushed everything back, like literally into my back, because I just didn't know how to deal with that type of bullying and rejection. And so it showed up in the lower back. But at the same time, my family was going through that sense of, how do we go from nothing, like having zero money and living, I would say, in poverty in Eastern Europe, to Australia, and just trying to figure it out, and still struggling a lot. And so again, I was absorbing, as we do. And as I started recognizing, this is how I feel the body really works. As you recognize something and feel through it and understand it and change your perspective on it, you start to let go and transform. And that's what happened for me. And so by the end of this 3 weeks, no psoriasis, never had psoriasis since. And, like my dad has it, and his twin sister has it, my grandfather had it. So it's definitely in the family. And never had back pain. I mean, I have twinges if I'm, overdoing something, but never really anything like what I'd experienced. Digestive issues took a lot longer because that is very ancestral, and I just felt like it was very connected to my own loss and the fact that my grandmother lost most of her family during the war. And so, I had to, it's been a journey to process, and I'm still, like, it taught me how to eat, how to, I'm very conscious of what goes into my mouth, let's say 90% of the time. And then there's 10% where I'm
Yeah.
just like, hey,
I'm right there with you. I'm like, ooh, cheesecake. Yeah.
well, yeah, exactly. My mom's on this journey of making a lot of cakes. So I'm like, I can't say no. She put a lot of
Right.
effort in.
Right. Like, all right, mom. Yeah.
And then I also discovered that this same ability of tuning into my own body opened up to see into other people's bodies. And like you, I kind of I was very young, from the perspective, I was like, I want to learn, I want to learn, I want to discover things. And I was thinking, well, I wanted to be a writer, I wanted to write plays, books, journalism, whatever, wherever there was writing, I wanted to do it. And I had written a play that had been performed. And so I was excited once disability kind of showed up. I was like, what do I do with it? Well, how about I interview people who who teach about it, teach about healing, teach about intuition, and then write for magazines about it. And that's kind of how I started. And then when I was 25, I intuitively had this sense, and it was actually quite funny because it was around the time that I was meeting Louise Hay and Wayne Dyer, and a lot of people obviously compare me to Louise Hay um, and Caroline Myss, and so I had met Caroline and interviewed her, and so I was, I had all these magazines and lined up to interview Wayne Dyer and Louise Hay. But I just had this feeling, it was like, now you've got to do your own thing. And I remember thinking, oh my God, I need to interview them before I turn 25, because it was like 25 is the time where it has to shift, it has to change. You've got to really step up more. And so I met them just as I turned 25, and it was like, oh, but it was fascinating. And so when I was 26, I decided, okay, it's time to connect all the pieces, because I'd been working with people for about 5 years at that time, and doing healings both on quite famous people, because they were like, oh, do healing on me, as well as just having a lot of clients. And funny enough, when people ask, who were most of your clients, like if you had to pick a profession, there were nurses and teachers. I had doctors as well, funnily enough, but there was a lot of nurses and a lot of teachers. And and I just thought to myself, I want to write, and I feel like I'm just connecting all these pieces, and I'm just in it at the moment. I'm so deeply in it. And then, how things just happen synchronistically. I met this publisher, and at that time, to be honest, I didn't even know he published books. I thought he published card decks. And I was like, oh my God, I have so many ideas of card decks, and I'm always over prepared. And so he said, okay, come and talk to me. And so we had a meeting, and I came with literally 11 ideas for card decks because I literally didn't know that he'd done books. And so he sat there, and he went, how much of this information do you already have? And I said, well, I keep really good notes. I'm very detailed. And he said, well, if you put this and this and this together, it would be a best-selling book, and I'll publish it. And so he went, go home, write it, I'll send you a contract. And I went, really? Is that easy? And he went, yeah.
Yeah.
And so I wrote it, and yeah, it's been amazing, an amazing journey.
Yeah, well, huge congrats to you. If you looked on the shelf behind me, I don't know if you can see it, but filled with Wayne Dyer books, Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life, and Louise Hay. I mean, I even went to a Hay House Writers Conference and learned so much about, and that's right when I started the podcast. So that was, yeah, 2017, so 8 years ago. um, and just learned so much. So I'm a little envious that you got to meet Wayne Dyer, because oh my gosh, he's just my idol. Like I love his wisdom, and I loved his
Yeah,
insights. And so, yeah, very, very cool. That's awesome. So
yeah.
now, one of the things that I had written down was, you talk about the secret language of the body, which is the name of your book. What is that? Like, can anybody tune into it? Is that what you teach people in your book?
Anyone who's open to it, because if you're not open to it, you're not going to, right? You're just going to say,
Right.
no, it doesn't work. But if you're open to it, yeah, I mean, the body is so wise and it's logical. This is what I try and explain to people. And if we break it down even into the centers of thinking, feeling, and will, so the head area is all about thinking, and we start to look at how am I thinking? And so, for instance, most people get headaches because they're just so overwhelmed, or issues around their head, or they numb things, or they push them away, or they don't talk about it because talking about it is still part of our thinking center. It kind of starts to move into the feeling and combines it. But essentially, when we think about our eyes, it's about seeing. And so I always say to people, if your vision deteriorated as you got older, what was it that you didn't like seeing? How much focus do we have on the things that we see that we don't want to see because our family gets unhealthy, or and people start having issues, and we see all these problems in the world, and we just go, oh my God, I just want to blur it out and numb
Mhm.
it. And that's what the body does. And that's the intelligence. Is the same with ears. It's like, and it's really interesting because the left and the right are connected to the left is the feminine, the right is more of the masculine. So even if we're breaking it down and we're looking at ears, so the left ear is all about what am I listening to, one, internally, or not listening to. So people start having issues with their ears because they go, I don't, I cannot hear myself. Well, actually, I don't want to tell the truth, is what it's really about. Because if I tell the truth, I'm going to have to change, and I don't want to change, because change is scary.
Yeah.
And so, they don't. And then, in the right here, it's all about what people are talking about from the outside of yourself. And are they being critical? Are they being judgmental? Again, is it what you don't want to hear? And so again, when we start breaking things down, we go, oh my God, there's so much wisdom. And then we have the throat is all about communication. So the wisdom and this, I guess, the secret is not that secret once you see the logic in it, right? It's like I say to people, look at the part of the body and ask, what does it do? What's it for? And then it will tell you so much wisdom. So if I'm looking in the throat and it's all about communication, when I don't want to communicate and I push it back, I have pain in the neck. And we even say that, oh, this person is a pain in the neck, right? We have it in our language.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so this communication, and sometimes people say to me, but I have thyroid issues, I have throat issues, and I'm good at communicating. It's like, well, it's actually more than being good at communicating. It's being vulnerable in your communication, and it's who you're communicating with. And it's also when you communicate with someone, are you do you feel into it? Because it's kind of in between the feeling and the thinking. Do you think about what is it that I'm trying to say, and what is it that what is the result that I'm trying to get? And most people don't. They just blurt things out, and then they wonder why people get upset with them and kind of get, you get a little slap, and you go, oh, I'm not going to talk about this again because you hurt me. And so they don't realize how much hurt is held in there. And then we have the heart, and it's all about relationships and intimacy, and so is the chest, and rejection and destiny. It's like it's destiny meets our intimacy, right? And our relationships. So am I living my life's purpose, and am I with the person that I want to be with? And and how much have I been hurt? And am I following my hurt heart, or am I following my healed heart, my wise heart? And so each part of the body is really giving us this, this wisdom, this insight when we connect with it and ask questions.
Yeah. And I'm again fascinated because I told you I was seeing an acupuncturist and Chinese herbal medicine. So she does that as well. And probably for, I don't know, maybe 2.5 months now. And I asked her the other day when I was lying on the table and I said, I have tinnitus or tinnitus, however you pronounce it, in just my left ear. And we've been working on this like throat pain just on the left side. Like it's everything was happening on the left side. And I asked her, I said, is there a reason for that? And so hearing you talk just now and talking about what is it, the feminine is
Yeah,
correlated to the left side.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's so
Fascinating.
interesting because so many, I was just talking about this with someone recently. Well, I talk about it all the time actually, because what's happened is that um what I've seen is that so much of who we are and working with emotions can actually be done in a really safe, beautiful way by understanding archetypes, which is something that Jung brought to us originally. And he also talks about the feminine and the masculine archetypes. And what's happened over the years is that women have become these doing machines. I have to cook for my family, I have to look after my family, I have to do this for my husband, for my this, for my daughter, for my son, for whoever, for my dog, right? And we've stopped really having any time to go within and to go, well, what does it look like for me to express my feminine, to express my vulnerability, to be held in that, because feminine is about color, it's about flavor, it's about flow. And so what I talk about, it's almost like, we have feminine and masculine within all of us, but we deny it because we just don't understand how to work with it. And so to me, it's like we're born into this incredible castle with so many rooms, and each room has this flavor and color that expresses some unique part of ourselves. And as we're young and we're growing up, we're told, don't do this, you can't be like this, you're not allowed this, you can't cry, you can't laugh too much, you can't do this, you can't do that. And as we keep hearing it from our family and from teachers and from essentially a tribe, we start going, okay, I'm going to shout this room and this color and this. And eventually, as we get into our 20s, we end up in this 2-bedroom apartment of not really knowing ourselves and trying to fit into society and trying to be like what everyone wants us to be. And this part of us that is super creative, juicy, feminine is essentially shut down. And then we become, and the feminine is all about flow and movement. And there's, I know, like, when I was younger, I was really exploring a lot to do with movement. And I got into Gabrielle Brother's work. I don't know if you know her. And she would show you the flow of the feminine and just how to move, and then the staccato of the masculine, and how if we don't embrace the feminine, we literally, our bodies become staccato. We become very robotic in a sense, and we become very logical. And so I was exploring a lot to do with acting. I want to be an actor. And so this was all up my alley of going, how do we embody all of this and understand, movement through touch, through feeling, through visualization, through all, like, how do we use all of ourselves to expand, to work with both our archetypes and just our who we are, so that we can grow and understand why we get stuck, why I got stuck.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes, I was invited yesterday to uh, do a yoga class. I live on Hilton Head Island in South Carolina, and so I was like, oh my gosh, I haven't been on a yoga mat in years. And so I said, all right, this has come across my radar, so I'm going to do it. And at the end, I said to the instructor, I said, is it normal to be crying? Because tears were just flowing out of me and you use the word flow, because I could feel the flow as I was working through the barely holding a triangle pose and shaking as I was trying to hold it, but fascinating. And then today I said, you know what? That was so empowering yesterday. I am going to just honor myself and stop the to-do list for a few minutes. And I just gifted myself about a half an hour just to sit outside, be with nature, and do some really just, I want to say flow work, but I wasn't really journaling. I wasn't really doing anything. I was just being in the flow, if that makes any sense.
Mm, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it is. It's all about that, and I was reflecting as we were talking, and it's it's so vital what you just said, to be in the flow. And for instance, when my daughter was really young, when she was 12 and 13, she said to me, Mom, I don't talk like you. I don't want to express myself like you do. I'm different to you. And I remember thinking about it and going, how do I connect to her and make sure that she does learn to express and expresses her feminine? And I was thinking, what's creative that she loves doing? And it was like, she loves dancing. And so her and I, for years and years, and even sometimes now, we would have this practice. We would sit and we would witness each other move. And so we'd go, okay, I'm going to show you where I'm at today and how I'm feeling. And we would choose the music. And then the other person had to really concentrate and watch and be fully present
I
with
love that.
allowing space, yeah,
Yeah.
for each one of us to express.
Yes. I love that idea. I mean, what a cool well, one, I'm that person that plays my music and dances around the kitchen. So yeah. And so when you say that, like I know with me, you brought up earlier the anger component, and I know there's an emotional connection to the psoriasis. Like there's none in my family. I never had skin issues. This popped up when I had a very traumatic incident in the last few
Yeah.
years. And so um anyway, the anger, I've had so many podcast guests said to me, I've had, therapists say that I processed so much of my trauma, but that anger I always kept at arm's length. And so
Mm.
um I've heard like the dancing and the releasing that's a really good way to release anger. Is that true?
Absolutely. It's an amazing way to release anger. And also what you find is that anger is a result. It's an emotion that is often a result of other emotions that are underneath. And that could be a result of fear that comes up. It could be a result of grief and sadness, because actually we find it very, very difficult to move through sadness in a deep way, or it could be shame, because these are really, really hard emotions. And anger, we kind of go, okay, I can create a boundary with anger, because anger can be also turned into passion. It could be turned into action. It gives you a lot of vitality in a sense, and energy. And it's a doing thing potentially, you know, but underneath the anger, it's what is the harder thing to work through, because we feel like if we go deeper, we can fall apart, and who's going to hold us? And so, um, again, when I work with people around trauma, I'm a big fan of two things. One is to regulate the nervous system through, I work with the process called triple warm meridian. So we hold different points on the body, and then we work with color, and we work with releasing statements, and we also actually connect to higher beings to regenerate and give us vitality and energy. And then once the nervous system is calmer, then I encourage people to work with the archetype of what happened during that traumatic experience. What was the archetype that got activated? And because the archetype is actually the one that's holding the trauma, holding the perspective of the trauma that the trauma caused, and all sorts of beliefs and feelings and stories. And so when we actually connect directly to this archetype, we can help it to turn around and change its perspective and to grow. And this is where I found the easiest and the most gentlest release of trauma, rather than going too direct into the experience.
Yeah, and that was my next question. You just answered it was, I know I did EMDR therapy for 4 years, and that was going directly back to the traumatic experiences, bank robberies and sexual molestation and all the horrible, really rough things. And it took 4 years to process that. Now it helped a lot, but man, did I cry a lot going through because we were going back to those original traumas. So I love it. I love the idea of a gentle approach where it's not like deep diving into and returning to the things that can re-traumatize so many people. Yeah, that's beautiful.
Well, it's also because what I found with a lot of students that I have, and I've worked with thousands and thousands and thousands of people, and so they would work directly on the trauma, and then the trauma would surface again later in some kind of a physical condition. And then go to me, but I don't understand. I've worked on it. I've cried all the
Yes.
tears. I've gone through all the anger, right? And they're going, why is it coming back? And it's actually because they worked on the experience, but not with the archetype, with the part of themselves. And that part is gone, okay, so yeah, we've done the emotional stuff, but I still haven't grown. And so the part, so then when something, because we're constantly recycling, we're constantly going through cycles of anything that we haven't looked at. And if there's been traumas and there's levels and layers of it, there'll be things that in the cycle, 7-year cycles, as you're exploring them, that will show up again. But what's happening is that because that archetypal part, that part of yourself, when, well, I didn't change, you might have worked on the trauma, but I did not change, it will recreate things. But when you work on that actual archetype and allow it to grow, so it's not a one-off thing. It's like observing it and working with it and understanding it. Why is it still holding on to things? And what is it that it didn't fully process? And what's a new perspective? And how can you allow it? And it might say to, yes, I need to move more, or I need to do this more, or, you know, so it will actually give you a lot of wisdom. And then as it grows, it works with you instead of against you. And this is the step that when people are healing, they skip the most, right?
Yes.
Because they don't realize that this part of you has to be looked at and that it has to grow with you.
Wow. I mean, you see my head going like, wow. I mean, that's so very profound. And one of the things that I think of, and again, I've talked about it for probably a couple years on this show, and you're blowing my mind here because I used to love to walk on the beach. One of my favorite things in the world. Nobody out there kicking my feet in the surf. Like it just brought me so much joy and peace. The Pisces in me, like, I wanted to be by the water. So we moved to this beautiful island. And now when I go out to the beach, I mean, I've made some improvements, but I still have to be under a tent. I have a tremendous need to want to be in a hermit shell and crawl in the sand and hide. And it's like a horrific fear of open space. And so again, I know it's something that you're right, like recycled. And it's like, where is this coming from? What is this? And so, yeah,
Well, I can, sorry to interrupt, but I can already tell you that just from you describing it, it's going to be inner child meets the feminine as the archetypes, because those are the parts of us that don't feel safe. As a child, we didn't feel safe when things happened because we needed our parents there to support us. And then in the feminine, and I've done a lot of study around just understanding our feminine and masculine aspects, depending also on which body we're in, right? Which physical body we came in, because that has an impact as well. But when you're in the feminine body and you're in the feminine, and your experience of the feminine is very different than when you're in the masculine body, because you're constantly kind of looking at a threat constantly.
yes.
It could be the voice, the tone of voice, it could be anything. And your nervous system just goes into shock. And and I talk about this with my partner all the time, because we've been listening to different podcasts around it, and we've done workshops. And so he'll be like, well, I don't feel the threat like you do. I'm just being a man at the moment. I'm like, no, you're actually, you've just raised your voice. And he's like, yeah, but men do that. And it's that thing of the feminine in us as an archetype. If this part of us does not feel safe, then it will create a scenario where we feel anxious. Like you said, but it could be open spaces for some. It could be, walking down a particular street for another, because it's connected and intertwined into your own personal trauma and what happened. And so you'll reactivate it. And I know, I was married to somebody who was a narcissist, um, and borderline slash
Yeah.
narcissist, and and when we separated, I'd never had this type of trauma before in my experience. And I remember I was kind of fine and calm until I met my partner. And then as my heart opened, I remember going, I'd sit in the car as we're driving, and there'd be a voice in my head going, don't trust him. What if he, look, he said the same words as my ex-husband. What if he's a narcissist? What if he's this? What if he's that? And I had to, because when you do archetypal work, you also work with the wise self. So you have to develop that wise voice that can separate from the voices of the different archetypes. And I was like, oh my God, this is my wounded child meets my wounded feminine going, I'm so scared. I'm terrified that this man is going to end up hurting me. So I'm projecting. And whereas my wise self was like, calm down. Just, we need to be logical here a little bit more. We need to be wise. And I was literally in this fight with myself. And my partner, as he was driving, he was like, are you okay? Is everything okay? Because he would feel things. And I'm like, I'm just in internal conflict right now that I'm dealing with, but if you don't know the archetypes, you start going, this is me. And you generalize. And when you generalize, their anxiety becomes much, much bigger. And the issues that you're dealing with and the feelings actually amplify, because they are generalized now as opposed to specified. And I'm a big, big believer in specificity.
Yeah, yeah. Wow. I'm just sitting here shaking my head and saying, oh my gosh, yes, 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 yes. I'm resonating with every beautiful word you're saying.
Mm.
Um, so now can people work with you? And like, do you do coaching? Do you like, how do people learn this? Is it by reading your book or do you have courses?
Um, I have courses, because a lot of this you can't put it in the book. You kind of have to be there, and you have to guide people through this. And I'm very responsible. I try to really hold the space. And
Yeah.
so I have a course called Awaken the Healer Within, where we go through the chakras and how the chakras actually connect to every archetype we have seven that every human being has, and then you have your own as well. And so seven chakras, and well, actually, there's a few more that
Yeah.
that show up at different timelines, but essentially the chakras are connected, and we work through the archetypes and the triple warmer exercise and all of these different connected pieces, and we create a map for healing where it's very, very specific. And so often people come to this course, and which goes over 10 days. So it is an investment into yourself, and they go, I feel like I've done everything. And then they come to the course and they go, oh my God, I haven't done most of this. I haven't connected all these pieces. I've only done one aspect. And oh my God, I can see how so many pieces need to be connected together for me to have a foundational experience of healing. So people can actually, I have a free masterclass where with some processes where people can start and explore and experience and go much deeper into, because I think goes for 4 hours. So it's kind of like a mini workshop. And people can go to innasegal.com, so INNASEGAL.com/masterclass. So really easy to remember, and give themselves those few hours, have a journal and actually watch it. And then and participate and do the exercises. And then if you want to go further, then there'll be a way to contact my team, and then they'll explain how it works, and come and go deep. But I also have courses and masterclasses that are self-paced and where people can just go, let me just begin the journey. I'm not ready for a 10-day dive. I just want to start and get to know my body and get to know the language of it. So I have all sorts of masterclasses on so many topics as well, that people can explore by going to my website, innasegal.com, and going to the masterclass page.
Awesome. Awesome. And I don't know if you believe in angels. I have them sometimes they'll appear. And right now, like over here on to my right, there's like iridescent and white little orbs floating. It's almost like they're like cheering and being like,
I
so
definitely believe in them, and talk a lot about angels and archangels and archai and
yeah, yeah,
all the
yeah.
higher beings.
Well, they're here cheering on this conversation. So, and I keep seeing them and I'm like, hi guys. So I love it. I love it. Well, I could just sit here and talk to you for, probably days on end, but I certainly want to give you an opportunity to maybe leave people with any final words of wisdom or talk about anything we didn't get an opportunity to.
I think the biggest thing I want people to be aware of is that there's so much wisdom inside of you. And at times you just need the right guide, and you need somebody to help you with all the, because it's like a puzzle, right? It's
Mm.
like we're trying to put all the pieces of the puzzle together. And sometimes it's just that extra piece or the extra few pieces of the puzzle that are just, you haven't quite got there to have this real shift and transformation. And when you do, so many things change. And it's not just in your physical body, it's in your life, it's in your destiny, it's in your relationships. And healing to me is so different to curing, because curing is just focused on getting rid of, whatever symptoms you have, whereas healing is all about discovering the wisdom of what are my symptoms, what is my body really trying to show me, and how do I shift this in my thinking, in my feeling, in my will, in my actions. And when we align, just incredible things happen, and healing on different levels. But like I said, it's beyond healing. It's like the world opens up to possibilities that you didn't even know existed. So, when you're struggling, don't give up. Just start asking questions and start looking for answers, and they'll show up.
Amen. Yes. Oh my gosh, just absolutely beautiful. Your wisdom just again has hugged my heart in so many ways and enlightened me. And it's funny you talked about a puzzle, because I said that maybe 2 days ago to somebody. I said, I feel like I've put the puzzle together, but I'm missing like 3 pieces. And I'm like, can somebody help me find these pieces? Because I have looked and looked and I can't find the 3 missing pieces. So I love that. I love that analogy. So thank you.
Okay.
All right. Well, so how do folks connect with you and where do they find your book?
Well, the book is all over Amazon, and but if you have a bookshop, a local bookshop, I'm a big believer in supporting bookshops. So go to your bookshop and you can ask for The Secret Language of Your Body, or I have other books as well. Like I have a book that came out a couple of years ago called Understanding Modern Spirituality, and you mentioned angels, and I really go into spirituality and angels and archangels, and kind of how the world was created. And the deeper questions we need to ask ourselves. So yeah, so online or in a bookshop if you have one near you to support
Yes.
them. And then just going to my website, innasegal.com, and yeah, we have so many tools and you know, if you want to be in touch with all the different things that I'm teaching and doing, because I give so much away for free, go and sign up to my newsletter at innasegal.com and you'll be getting all the amazing information.
Awesome. Well, I'll be adding the Ina books to I'll put you next to Wayne Dyer on the bookshelf. So,
Thank you.
all right. Well, thank you again so much for being here and the beautiful work that you do.
Thank you.
All right. Well, everyone, thanks for joining us today on the Healing Place podcast. And remember, until next time, be gentle with yourself. Thanks. Bye-bye. Hey, everybody. Teri Wellbrock here. Just wanted to thank you again for being a part of this healing space and my hashtag Hope for Healing journey. Thank you for sharing, liking, inviting others to join, listening in. You've really helped this show blossom. It has now been downloaded in 136 countries and is in the top 2% globally out of 3.2 million shows, which is just amazing. And it's all because of you and your tuning in and inviting others and sharing and liking and loving. And your reviews on Apple really help too. My goal is to hit 100 5-star reviews by the end of the year. And I am closing in on that. So if you are listening in on Apple or Apple Podcasts, please go and rate the show and leave a review if you absolutely love it. And I would be most appreciative. Also, if you would like to receive my monthly Hope for Healing newsletter, please be sure to go to teriwellbrock.com. It's Teri, just one R, WELLBROCK.com. And I have a gift to send you for signing up for that monthly Hope for Healing newsletter. Plus, there are many other resources listed on that page, including a resource library. All right. Thanks. Bye-bye.